to this meeting. I've been given the opportunity to open the session, and I hope that I'm going to try my best to be able to do justice to the topic that have been given to me. But first and foremost, I would like you to please be open-minded. My session sometimes can provoke something, especially your belief, your deep-seated belief. And if you're a religious person, it can also provoke something that you have heard for many years. But I need people open-minded so that you can be able to have an understanding. You are free to disagree. You are free to challenge my thoughts. Well, please just be open-minded as I flow. So I'd like to begin with an exercise. Are you here with your pen and your jotter? Okay, good. If you are a right-hand user, please can you take the pen to the left? And if you're a left-hand user, take the pen to the right. And if you use both equally, I don't know what to say. Probably you're going to use the both to write. But let's just quickly do this exercise. If you use your right hand to write, take the pen to the left. And I'd like you to write something in 10 seconds. Are you ready? Are you set? Okay, want to go. I would like you to write understanding the mind of Gen Alpha. 1. Understanding the mind of Gen Alpha. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, and 10. Nobody finished. It's good to see some wrong graduates here. Kenny, how are you? How was it? In one word, can you describe the experience? Challenging, not easy, even though that was 2 words. Stressful, difficult, a lot of effort, natural, unnatural. Okay, thank you very much for that. Okay, there's a reason why I said you should do this particular task. 2 reasons, actually. The first one is not really related to what I want to talk about, but I'm just going to share it because that's more scientific. So if you do your biology very well, you understand that there's 2 sides of the brain, the right and the left. So just the same way you have your right hand and your left hand, which are connected to your right and left brain, is the fact that most times that particular hand that you are used to or that you use often is what you focus on and you ignore or neglect the other part. So which scientifically it has been proven that it is good once in a while you use the other part of your hand that you don't use often because that part is connected to your brain. For instance, if you're a right-hand user, or for some time you need to engage your left hand in exercise, in activity. You know what it is when you pack something and you don't use it for a long time. It begins to weaken. So it's important for us to pay attention to that. But that's not the reason why I say you should do this. The reason why I said you should do this task is because it's possible for me to look at what you have written. Who is bold enough to let me look at what you put down? Okay. Sorry, this platform, I can't. Okay, thank you. Are you bold enough to show everybody? Okay, so it's possible for me to look at, what's your name, please? It's possible for me to look at what Ronke have written, and I say, Ronke, look at your writing, scattered, not intelligent, so dull. It's possible for me to do that. Why? Because I'm only focused on the outward appearance, but I ignore the internal struggle she went to put that down. So it's possible for me to look at what she has done without understanding that she used the hand she's not often used to. And for that, it took a lot of effort and struggle for her to get that particular outcome. But what I'm only focused on is the outcome without looking at the process. And that's the major problem we face as parents, because one thing that is lacking when it comes to parenting is empathy. Empathy simply says, in a layman term, you put yourself in someone else's shoes, which means you understand their pain. Before you judge, you want to understand what they are going through. And you ask yourself, if I was in their shoe, how would my response be? So if my response is going to be their response, then I'll hold my judgment. But most time we look at our children and they are struggling to do certain things, or they are behaving in a certain way, and we begin to judge them without understanding the internal struggle that they are going through to behave the way they are behaving. Why? Because you want them to behave the way you are behaving, but you know it's two different generations. The problem a lot of us parents have, and I'll be including myself, is the fact that when a child is behaving a certain way, we want the child to behave the way we will have behaved. So thank God we have a lot of Christians here. So I'll quote Bible. Even if you are not a Christian, I'm not ashamed of my faith. He said, when I was a child, what do I do? If you don't know it, just open it. Thank God you have AI. You can just use ChatGPT and open it. When I want you to get that accurate verse, exactly the way it's written. Who is bold enough to read that for us, if you found it, rather? So when I was a child, what did it start with? When I was a child, I speak like a child. I understood as a child. And I thought as a child. But when I became a man, I put away childish things. So when I was a child, what comes first? I speak. What comes second? I understood. What comes third? Look at the pattern. When I was a child, I speak. When I was a child, I speak first. I understand. Then I think. But when I become a man, what do? I think. I understand. Then I speak. So are you understanding the pattern? Because that is the way the child brain is wired. Children are impulsive. You don't expect children to reflect before they talk. Children will talk. It's not your responsibility to help them to reflect. So that is why when you have now become an adult, you always speak before you think. Then people say you still behave like a child. Because you've not grown into maturity. Because as a matured parent who has been given the responsibility to raise children, you need to be able to, first of all, think, understand, then you speak. So, Albert Einstein said something. He said you cannot solve the problem that we created yesterday with the same thinking that we used to create it. We cannot solve the problem that we created with the same mindset, the same approach, the same habits that we used to create it. So, which means that the generation alpha that we are raising, we cannot raise them the way we raise Gen Z and the way we raise millennials. Because something has shifted and there's a generational shift. But we must be able to equip ourselves with the knowledge and skills that we need to be able to solve the problem and raise them properly. But if you don't know, ignorance is not an excuse. See, in this world that we live in, and let me say this very well, we have two worlds. We have the spiritual and we have the what? The physical. But you see, in this world, there are things that has been designed by science that will drive this world. We all believe that the spiritual rule over the physical. Okay, let me give you a perfect example of what I'm saying. Not everyone who stammer that is connected to genetic. There are environmental actions that can make a child to stammer. One of it is trauma. If a child grew up in an environment that is traumatic. Another scientific principle I'll give you is the fact that language development sometimes does not come naturally, not because of gene, but because of the kind of environment the child grew up in. And maybe for 3 years, the child has not started speaking properly. And one of it is if the child grew up in an environment when it's not exposed to people who are communicating with the child. It's only screen is just exposed to. Because social language development is developed within a social context. I don't know if you get what I'm saying. Now, what I'm trying to do is to give you scientific principles that explain children's behavior. So that when your child at 3 years has not started speaking, you don't start thinking that maybe there's somebody that is doing you. Before you get to that point, you need to analyze it. What has been done that has damaged the child? Did you have time to communicate with that child? Or you just abandon the child with screen for the first 3 years of his life? The behavior and outcome will be predictable. You don't need any soothsayer to tell you that. So children grow in different domains. Children grow physically, they grow emotionally, they grow psychologically, they grow spiritually. That is why even the Bible says, and the child increased. The child grew in wisdom, cognitive development, in stature, physical development, in favor with God, spiritual moral development, and with man, social development. So when you are raising a child, you must focus on this domain. If you want them to be competent in their cognitive development or social development or emotional development as well as spiritual development, there must be some things you must do. It will never happen naturally. Isaac Newton's law of motion says every object remains at a point of rest until an external force is what? Is applied. No child ever become well-behaved without someone creating the environment for the child to function effectively. That's why the Bandura, social learning theory, says that if you give me a child, a brand new child, I can determine what that child will become by putting him in the environment that I want the child to grow. Whether I want the child to become a president, a successful person, or I want the child to become an armed robber, I can determine it. Because human behavior is predictable. So there's a science to it that we must be able to understand. So the child we are raising has never existed before. Generation Alpha. This is a new generation, brand new generation of children that have come into this world with certain realities that they have combated with. Unlike what we experience, their generation experienced something different. So we must be able to understand that if we don't have the knowledge and the skills that we need to be able to put that into place, there will be parenting gap. So Generation Alpha, when we talk about generation, I know most of us are used to Gen Z, we are used to millennials, baby boomers and all. Gen Alphas, this is the new classification of generations that we have right now. And if we don't do what we need to do as parents, trust me, we're sitting on a time bomb. Because the world has become so complicated, the complexity of the world that they are born into, we must be able to create an environment that helps them to function effectively. We must be able to go out there and counter culture. Because many of us, we are trying to raise our children using tools that were designed for a completed generation. We are using tools, using resources and approaches of thinking that are different from the current generations that we are raising. Born into everything technology that you are aware of that has been created in dates. They are born into it. And you know the world we are living in so fast-paced. So if they are born into these realities, we must understand the people that we are working with or raising and see how we can pay attention for their growth and development. So we must understand also, so how many of you as parents, to be honest, feel sometimes your child is growing up in a world that you don't fully understand? So you see your child growing in different generations, growing in the world. So we must pay attention to this. When we talk about Gen Alpha, most times some people can just find it difficult. So these are children born from 2010 upward. So we must understand that these are the generations that, these are children that we are working with, that we must create an environment that help them. These are children that are raised in a generation that we deal with smartphone, we have YouTube, AI, and also they are exposed to information that are well advanced their age before maturity. Do you know what that means? That they are exposed to information. They are exposed to, the world of information, to things that are well above their age, why they are not yet mature. Because, unlike some, before we have all this technology, there are certain things you will not be exposed to because you don't have access. Growing up in an environment, I never have opportunity for a phone to watch TV, so there are things you will not see. You know that anything that you ever become is within the confine of the environment, which is probably your home or the school that you attended and so on. But now you can live in a particular location, in a home, and you are exposed to everything in the world. Because the world has become borderless. Are you getting what I'm saying? Somebody in Costa Rica can be parenting you while you're in Nigeria. The world has become borderless. This is our realities, and we must be able to confront this reality with superior knowledge. And that's what we must do. Because you see, content will continue to come out. People will continue to create content. We argue that now younger people do not have respect again. It will increase because they have their platform. Unlike before, where you have the platform to control them, but now they have the platform where nobody can control them. And the worst of it is that some of them even have followers that you've never dreamt of. So they are parenting. These people will parent your own children if you don't create content. Because you see, there are two worlds. We must create things that will disarm what they are creating. There must always be superior knowledge. Are you getting what I'm trying to say? Moses put down his rod. The magician put down their rod. But one swallowed the other. That is superiority. Whatever you are creating, they are creating. Are you getting what I'm saying? And they will create things that will influence your children negatively if you don't come with content that will counter it. So you can't be keeping quiet. You must be loud. When I mean loud, I don't mean be nuisance values around your environment. I say be loud so that you can create content that will swallow their own content because you have access to God, superior intelligence. So you must create it. And that is what we must do. You don't know when you go online. I don't know how many of you, maybe you have access to Instagram, TikTok, and all of these things. You see things people create. You know now this world, content, because it's being monetized now, everyone is creating content. But be sincere with yourself. How many of those contents really has value that you want to embrace? But you see, if we don't do anything and keep quiet, that this world is not my home, I am just passing by. May God not allow you pass by and not get to your destination. We must. So I don't know why I went this part. Maybe there's somebody here who you have been thinking of starting something and you have been holding yourself back. That I don't want to start. I'm afraid. What if I fail? It's better to try and fail than not to try anything. I don't know, I'm connecting it to the first story she shared, I experienced. Nobody has done anything successful in this life that was never afraid. If they tell you, it's a lie. If they tell you they were never afraid, they are just deceiving you. Nobody. We are here today because somebody took that bold step. Life is about bold step. And it's those who dare to do things that the world recognizes. If not, your dream will die inside you. Are you getting what I'm saying? Like I said, I don't know why I drifted to this part, but it's possible. You are here. You want to do something, but you are afraid. Go and do it. If you fail, do it again. If you fail, do it again until you succeed. Consistency is the game. I get what I'm trying to say. Moses went to Pharaoh how many times? Several times. I can't count the number of times. Let my people go. Nah lie. Let them go. Nah lie. He did. It didn't work. He did this miracle. It didn't work. Pharaoh was adding. Why? Because God was teaching Moses process and consistency. That you will not know that in this life you cannot get anything good easily. You have to work. You have to put effort. so that you will understand the process that you went through to get all of this. Well, let me don't focus on that. That's not my topic. But I want to encourage you because we are waging war against people who are ready to put out content that will affect our children. Because you are not living in isolation. Anything that has been created, if we don't pay attention to it, it will affect us. So we live in an environment where we have rich information. People are exposed to things around them. So they understand things, they feel things, but they are not ready for what they are being exposed to. Talking about Gen Alpha. They are exposed to information they are not ready. They are exposed to things they are not ready. Are you going to say? Because now Gen Alpha are born into an environment where their first interaction is smartphone and not book. You don't understand what I'm saying? I'll come to that, how the brain is wired. Your screen time versus your book. And how children are living in an environment that is high pace. That their thinking is highly stimulated. That their capacity to be tolerant for things that are slow is no longer there. Everything, even human behavior, they want a microwave approach. That this person has to change fast. That's how some of us are becoming impatient. Especially husband and wife. The same thing what in children. You marry somebody that has lived somewhere for 38 years, or 30 years, or 25 years, and the person coming to your house, you want the person to change in a day. It's not possible. Because human behavior is not a microwave approach. So the same thing when it comes to parenting. We must understand that children, Gen Alpha, are raised by screen, by schools, and sometimes by domestic staff. And parents are nowhere to be found anymore. And you know the implication when a child is raised by screen without being guided and supported. You know the implication also when a child is raised by domestic staff. Because the domestic staff, no matter how well intentioned the person is, can't do beyond what he or she knows. Are you getting what I'm saying? You are the one that gave birth to the child. You must have a vision for the child. You know the values you want to inculcate into the child. So you must be able to pay attention. Even if you have all of those people, they should just be there to support. And not to be the one who is driving the seats and determining what is happening in the home. So it's important for us to create an environment. I'm emphasizing on environment. The reason why I'm emphasizing on environment is that most farmers knows that their problem is not most of the time the seed. Because if the seed is good and they put it in the right environment, the seed will produce. But most time, no matter how good the seed is, if it's planted in the wrong environment, nothing will come out. The child is not the problem. Most time is the environment. Nurture your environment, you will see how the child will flourish. And the same principles as well. There's a place called in the United States, it was called the Dead Valley. Why it was called the Dead Valley is because for many years, nothing grew on that land. But the day rain fell on that land, they started seeing plants, started flourishing. Then they knew that if the condition is right, the environment will flourish. So we must create an environment. And you know, there's an ecosystem when we talk about child development as it's related to environment. You have the microsystem, which is the home, where the child develops, the home or the school or your religious environment or the neighborhood. These are microsystems. But we have the exosystem, is the interaction between all of these microsystems. How the school interact with the home is very important. That is why the concept of PTA comes into play. So if you as a teacher, you are badly treated by the parent of the child that is in your class, unconsciously, you start transferring the anger on the child. Even if you want to be professional, you are a human being. So there's that interaction. The things that you pick from school, you bring it to the house or to the home. The things you pick from the home, you take it to the school. And you have the, I've talked about the exosystem. So you have the macro system, the general society that you live in. The things you see in the environment also influence you. and you have the environment where the child is not there physically, but the policies, the legislation within the environment is influencing how the child is developing. So if you work in an environment where they don't give you time for your family, it will impact on how your child develops, even though your child does not work in that environment. So we must understand the impact of the environment that your child, you see, most times just people say, my child can attend any school, it doesn't matter. It matters. My child can go to any place, anywhere, it doesn't matter. It matters. Because we just assume that children don't know things. Even if they don't have the capacity to talk, to express themselves, they have senses to pick things from the environment. And that is how they develop. Between 0 to 2 years, sensory-motor skills, how they learn is through what we call the senses and their motor activities. So they pick things, they feel things, they see things, they hear things. All of these things are impacting on their brain. And how their brain is developing. How their brain is being wired and shaped. So if we don't understand this reality, we will say all of these things does not matter or do not matter. It matters. Because they are growing in an environment where we must understand the reality of time. So they are growing fast in information, but they are slow in emotional regulation. So when it comes to information, they are accumulating a lot, but they don't know how to manage their emotions. They don't know how to regulate their emotions. When things happen, they flare up. So you now get to, for those of you at HR, one of the questions you ask most of the time is you want to test somebody emotional intelligence. Emotional intelligence does not develop when the person becomes an adult. It develops from childhood. I've seen an MD in a bank in Liberia. They were in a board meeting, and one of the directors got him angry and he threw calculator. So you know what it is for someone to become an MD of a bank? It means he's very intelligent when it comes to IQ, but very low when it comes to EQ. And nobody will teach you how to do. You must create an environment where the person is able to express it, where the person is able to develop it. Because there was a gap in the growing up of that particular MD in terms of emotional development, it shows in adulthood. It will always show. Whatever a child goes through in childhood does not disappear. It moves from the consciousness to the subconsciousness. When they become an adult, they play out, including the stress and the trauma that they go through. That's why sometimes once you see an adult behaving in a certain way, Oprah Winfrey wrote a book, and the book is titled What Happened to You? The concept of the book is that most time we are raising children or we see individuals and they are behaving in a certain way. The first question we ask is that what's wrong with you? He said we should move from asking what's wrong with you to what happened to you. Because most time when you see an adult, there's a wounded child in the adult. The wounded child means the adult went through trauma before 18 years when he was a child. And that trauma he went through, or she went through, did not go through any form of healing. He only moved forward. And moving forward means he suppressed the trauma into the subconsciousness. And when the person becomes an adult, triggers within the environment begin to bring it out. That's why you see sometimes you do certain things and you have to say, why do I do this thing after you've done it? Because you could not help yourself. It's trauma response. Are you getting what I'm saying? Because when emotion is heightened, logic is shut down. The brain does not work the same way. Are you getting what I'm trying to say? So it's important for us to understand the reality we are confronted in and see how we can help to be able to create an environment for our children to develop properly. Okay, they've given me time, so I need to be fast. Please pardon me. So the brain of Gen Alpha develop from experience. They are exposed, like I said, to digital, to technology, and now to AI. And the world is changing so fast. And you must understand something, that when a child or anyone is engaged in a fast learning activities, like maybe screen or all of that, what is being rewarded is that the dopamine, which is the reward center of your brain, is heightened. So they are get glued to it, enjoying the process. because their dopamine is being heightened and they are enjoying the process. Do you know what happened? When they now start engaging in activities that does not highly stimulate their brain, it's not being rewarded. And that's why you see they find it difficult to pay attention to reading book, but more interested in cartoons. Do you know why? It's a fast-paced activity, which as they are doing that and watching it, their dopamine is being released. They are excited. When it comes to book, it's a slow pace. It requires effort. It requires thinking. And most times they don't want to engage, so they disengage. But you see, once they start learning it, the reason why some of you do not like reading book is not because it's not because you have interest. You know, some people will come and say, oh, some people, their calling is to be reading book. Nobody has calling to be reading book. Are you trying to say? The reason is because if you want a child to develop interest in book, you start from childhood. But once you don't do that, you don't lock that down, and the child become exposed. You know, so the environment they are living in right now, the digital environment is fast rewarding, is highly stimulating. So we must understand, and this has led to, you know, when they now begin to seek constant stimulation, they avoid anything that require them to think. And you know, it's really interesting. You can't get anything on the surface if you are not a deep thinker. Anything that requires hard work, most of us avoid it. We just want the easy way. That's why people are interested in shortcuts. Anything that would require you, especially mental work, people just drop it. And you know, whether I like it or not, the world is designed to pay people who do mental work more than people who just do manual physical work. So you must allow your children to think, not only to just be engaged in screen time alone. We must also allow them to do activities that require them to think. Sometimes they will try it and they want to give up. Let them stay there. That's why puzzle is good. Let them solve the problem because it's helping them to think. It's helping them to stay and be focused. That's why painting is also good. Because TV, they are not actively engaging their brain. They are just enjoying the fun. They are just being entertained. So if that is only what they do, without engaging their brain, without interacting, it's going to affect how their brain is being wired. So it's important for us to pay attention to that. You know, so they struggle with sustained focus. Are you getting what I'm trying to say? So if a child eats, for instance, sugar every day, vegetable will feel boring. If on a daily basis you give the child sugar to eat, when you now give the child vegetable, it will feel boring. Are you getting what I'm trying to say? So digital content is what we call psychological sugar. Because if that's what they consume every day, when you now give them something that requires mental work, they will find it difficult to be able to do. So we say they have short attention span. Most time the attention is not shorter, it's just rewired. They high focus in interest-driven content, low tolerance to anything that, require low stimulation tasks. Gen Alpha can watch TV or videos for 2 hours, but struggle with 10-minute homework. And that's the reality we find ourselves. So we must see how we can create balance. We can't do away with screen time. That's the truth. Anybody that is telling you that is just deceiving you. The reality we find ourselves, that's the truth. But what is more important is how do we create balance so that they are not affected. So the brain is optimized for speed. Most time, the environment that has been created for them is optimized for speed. They are more interested in, anything that has to do with speed. So they disengage from school, not because they cannot learn, but because learning is not designed for their brain. If you look at the concept of learning,
We must also understand their emotional world. They are emotionally intense, easily overwhelmed with what is happening within their environment. High anxiety. They are exposed to it. Low regulation. So they find it difficult to be able to express themselves. Exposure to adult level content. They see content that are meant for adults because no one is available to guide them. Somebody, reach out to me talking about the 5-year-old and 8 years old where they were having, when they were romancing each other, and they said, what is that I should come and help them to solve the problem. The first question I ask is that these people were not born with this knowledge. Are you getting what I'm saying? They've been exposed to it. And when we found out truly they were exposed to it, both of them don't need to. One person was exposed and the other person influenced the other person. So these are realities. So they have not fully developed the capacity to be able to delay their emotion. And the way the brain of children work, that's why children find it difficult to regulate their brain the way you as adults will do. In some cases or instances where you have been able to develop it. So you must be able to create an environment that gives them the opportunity to be able to express themselves. So also they are exposed to an environment where their identity is being questioned. Okay. Are you getting what I'm trying to say? So we must also create, because they are using the environment to define their identity. They are using what they have been exposed to define their identity. Identity is simply saying, who am I? They will look at what they see in content to define who they are. See, let me beg you, every parent, especially those of us who are raising Gen Alpha, please, this is very important. Never, never, never use anything on the external to validate your child identity. Because most of us adults are struggling with it. So if you don't understand it, there's a tendency you will transfer it to your child. You must, I repeat, you must not use anything on the external, whether it's money, car, success, grade, whatever, to validate who a child is. It must come from the inside. Whether the child fail, whether the child succeed, that is not what defines who the child is. It must come from the inside. And that is the principle that even devil use to trick people. He told Eve, if you eat fruit, you become wise. External will determine who you are, which is the fruit. But before she ate it, God already said, I have created you in your image, internal. That is who you are. The same principle we want to use for Jesus. If you are a son of God, turn this stone to bread. So the stone turning to bread is what will define whether I'm son of God or not. No. God told me before I came that this is my beloved son in whom I'm well pleased. So I believe in that than turning stone to bread. What am I simply saying? Don't use anything on the external for us. If you think it's the car or the kind of car that you drive that determines who you are beginning to set a trap for your child. I've seen students, when I was in the university lecturing, who use grade to define who they are. When they have bad grade, they go into depression. Because the grade begin to define their identity. Their money begin to define their identity. When they have, they don't have. So that's why I've learned to abound and I've learned to what? To abase. Because I don't allow any of these things to define who I am. So you must raise your children this way. Because I'm telling you, we are living in a generation where a lot of people are exposed to things they see online. It has been proven by research, when Meta did this research, that Instagram is what causes depression more. That was before TikTok came out. I don't know if they do it now. Maybe TikTok will be higher. Because with Instagram, it's more of content that you see. They see things that make them to begin to compare. And comparison is dangerous for your self-esteem. So you must understand the reality we are faced in and see what we can do. So as I begin to round up, children start struggling with screen independence. We must help them out. Instant gratification as well as emotional outbursts. I don't have time. Well, I believe I'll see an opportunity to be on the panel. So I will share in terms of practical strategy of what we need to do to be able to help us, to be able to create an environment that is important for our children to be able to function effectively. Because environment matters. And if we don't create that environment, the children we are raising will not create that environment for themselves. We are the one raising them. So we must create that environment for them to be able to function effectively. The Gen Alpha you are raising, they are not broken. They are only adapting. We must adapt to. That's why I started by saying you cannot solve the problem that we created yesterday with the same thinking that we used to create it. We must change our thinking. We must change our approaches. Don't raise your children the way your parents raised you. Yes, you can pick some principle from how your parents raised you, but if you entirely depend on that, you will realize that these are two different generations. So you must open up yourself to knowledge, to information that will help you. So the question is not whether Gen Alpha will change. The question is whether we will change enough to raise them well. So it all begins with us. Once we change our approaches, change our thinking, it will help us to adapt to the generation and the reality they are living in, and help us to be able to raise them in a way that is proper, in a way that God Himself will be happy with us. Thank you very much.